forgetting. So, you know, as they say, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Welcome, welcome,
And
welcome.
welcome, welcome, welcome. And this is Cosmo Meens. And he's in Canada.
This is, Pamela Madsen.
And I'm Pamela Madsen. And we're both somatic sex educators, which means that we do less talky, and more touchy. But the mind is connected to the body, and the body is connected to the mind. So we do some talk, but we're usually mostly listening to how your body talks. And we have skills and tools to help you work with your body. And one of the things that I feel kind of bad is it's 7, it's not even, we have like 4 more minutes. So why don't you talk a little bit, tell us a little bit about you, Cosmo. I feel bad like starting a little early for the people who are just showing up.
Well,
welcome everybody.
We just did an erotic massage demo for a group of students with
wow.
a Canadian school.
Wow, how nice.
Virtually, and so of course I was thinking of you.
So you set up a table?
Yeah, we had a table. We went to Caitlin's studio, and we had a group of, I don't know, 15, 20 students, and it went really well. So it's
fabulous.
The erotic equation is totally alive in my body right now.
Well, that's fabulous. That's really, really great. So the erotic equation is something that's really standard for sexological body workers. So if you came a little early and you heard me bantering with Cosmo, oh my God, we're going to be talking about the erotic equation. Because it's something that we as somatic sex educators learned about in our training. And there's a psychologist, sex educator, his name is Dr. Jack Moran. And I really think it's important to name your teachers and name where you got your information. And Jack is no longer with us. He's passed away, but his book, The Erotic Mind, is still a staple. And if you want to read something really extraordinary, that's so much of, said, there's the book, and well worn like it should be, like beaten up. Jack is one of the originators of erotic themes. So there's all kinds of programs out there right now that have launched around erotic themes. It's all from him. It's all from him. And you know, his work was around erotic themes, and one of the things he talked about was the erotic equation. And the erotic equation is something that you can really take into all areas of your life. Do you want to like, you know what, before you just want to tell there's more people joining. In the chat box, folks, you can ask questions of us, and we love to interact with you. So you just have to write to the panelists or to panelists and all if you want everyone to know. You keep going. Thank you. Exactly. He just sent me a private message and I read it, which is really kind of silly. So I was going to, now I'm a little confused because I think I got a direction that I should keep talking. No, you didn't come in late. We just started a couple of minutes early and you haven't missed anything yet, Linda, so it's all good. Don't worry.
We're jamming behind the scenes first.
Yeah, we're just chatting. And we'll touch on COVID, sure. Let's start though with the with what is what is the erotic equation. And so you told me to keep going, so I guess that I was supposed to do that. He gave me the keep going, you're doing great, kid, keep talking. So the erotic equation starts with this idea that you can't have something. You can't have it. It's verboten. It's forbidden, right? You can't have it. and you can't have it, and it's prohibitive. That's very, very important that it's prohibitive. And then it's like against community guidelines in some way. Like there's like two parts of, and I'm stumbling on the words, Cosmo, because they're just slipping through my mind right now.
Social norms, like
Right,
social
the
norms.
social norms, and that creates yearning in your body. So every romantic novel and every love story always has prohibition in it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you got to have prohibition. That was the word I was seeking. You got to have prohibition. You have to have an obstacle. And then that creates yearning, which equals desire. If you don't have these things in your life, the sex gets dull. Your libido goes down, your desire goes down, which is why people who are in long-term relationships can have a problem, because they're maybe married or in partnership. So the prohibition is gone. You've been sanctioned.
Mm-hmm.
You have rings. You know, I love you forever is on your arm or something. Oh, actually, you do have that, don't you? I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, Cosmo. I am not mocking you. Why that came to me. But that's what people do. People will often do tattoos. They'll tattoo their fingers, you know, do all kinds of things. And that kind of goes away. You know, the obstacles go away. And so then the yearning and the hunger for sex goes away. And just knowing about the erotic equation is something that you can like use in like all areas of your life.
Mm-hmm.
It's like actually like I can tell you an erotic equation about a cupcake. Would you like to hear that story? Okay, so everybody, I'm going to give you a fantasy. Go with me along on a fantasy. So it's snowing out in winter in New York City, pre-COVID-19, when one was allowed to go to a cupcake store and get a cupcake. Okay, they existed. This was a long time ago. All right, and it's snowing. So I'm in my apartment in Riverdale, and I'm thinking, oh, I want a cupcake, not just any cupcake. I want Billy's cupcake on East 14th Street in Manhattan. Now, I know that I shouldn't have a cupcake. The doctor said, Pamela, no cupcakes for you. It's not good for you. It will make you like pre-diabetic and make your liver fat and you'll get chubbier. And my mother said, you don't need cupcakes. Go have an apple. Apples are good for you. But no. Pamela wants, you know what I want, don't you?
One bite of a cupcake.
One cupcake. Knows me very well. Want that fucking cupcake. But there's an obstacle. So there's the prohibition, not for you, bad for you. Then there's the obstacle. It's snowing outside. It's in Manhattan. I've got to have a big drive. This creates tremendous yearning in my body. I want it more. So I get in my car. I drive through the obstacle. I arrive at Billy's in great desire, and I get my cupcake. And you're right, I take one bite. So that's how
finish it.
Cosmo, eat that for me. So Cosmo, can you talk about, I've been taking up a lot of airtime. Can you talk about how people can work with the erotic equation in their love lives and keeping love alive and keeping sex alive?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I wanted to hear where you were like really at with it right today. And so that's great. Yeah. So something that you talked about in regards to prohibition, there's a term that I've been playing with, and it's, I call it taboo erotics. And
Ooh.
so it's just like, especially in longer term relationships. So like, I love that you framed it up like that. in newer relationships, we call this, NRE, or new relationship energy, right?
It's been so long that I forgot that. Right, new relationship energy. I remember
Right.
that.
Yeah, and so that's something that even like, whether it's prohibited or not, the newness and the novelty can kind of be that, what would be in the place. Some people might be aroused by prohibition, but some people it might be more specifically like new or novel, right? So we can kind of clump those all together as like a stimulating feature to something that excites you. And so, let's say, okay, well, we're in new relationship energy, so that's exciting, or we find some novelty, that's exciting. But then we have these long-term committed relationships, and we're going, oh, well, this plus this equals exciting. And, maybe in some long-term relationships, we're missing that kind of prohibitive, naughty, NRE, like new relationship energy, novelty, we're missing that piece that kind of blends with our comfort and grounded nature that we like from relationship, the stability of relationship. And so we're missing that piece that creates this high arousal or excitement arousal, right? That really kind of drives us in a unique way. So, one of the things that's, that changed my life in regards to long-term relationships is basically like what you started with the cupcake, right? Is some fantasy. So it would be mutually agreed upon either power dynamics or roles that partners can play in, where you actually, like, using Jack Morin's core erotic theme, he talks about like each of us has this core thing inside us that really stimulates arousal. So if you do a little bit of homework with your partner and you kind of, get the thinking cap on, not that you want to do that. That's sort of what messes people up sometimes. They're like, oh, I don't want to do that when I'm in arousal. So don't do it in arousal, do it beforehand. So get your thinking cap on and do a little study with your partner and be like, well, what, and this could be super hilarious and nervous, and you could you may never have said the things out loud that really turn you on. And so that can be in itself very arousing.
Sexy, right.
Having a conversation, right? So that would be an invitation for people to say, well, what is my core erotic theme? Like, what do I like? If I were to say things out loud, big requests, like what would they be? And maybe start alone and write them down, and maybe do it with your partner, depending on how eager they are, or willing. Maybe we can use that word. And then from that place, you could start to cultivate this. It's very individual, right? This individual erotic equation that you might not have right now. You might be missing one of the pieces. This plus this equals, yeah, and you might be like, this plus nothing equals,
Exactly.
Yeah. And yeah, and so, the game would be to figure out what that missing piece is for you as an individual.
Last night, Court's another guy who's a member of our team, Court Fox. We did a Facebook Live on expanding your erotic palette. And it kind of almost dances with this talk. Because when you talk about expanding your erotic palette, it's also about perhaps exploring things that you never explored before that may feel like prohibition, right? That may feel, so a prohibition could be if you're a man having anal penetration.
Yeah.
Having your woman, right? So the term is peg. Okay. So that's how it's referred to as pegging, when a woman's wearing a strap-on dildo and penetrates her man anally. Anally, pegging. And so that may feel really edgy for both the man and the woman, really edgy. Like there may be a lot of prohibition. She may not want to wear the tool of another gender, on her body. She may have a lot of prohibition about being a penetrator when women are taught to be receptors, right?
Mhm.
The man may also have feelings about being penetrated, but desire, there could be a lot of desire around that. And so, to first of all have the vulnerability to bring up something that has prohibition in it, that
Mhm.
some kind of edginess. Spanking can have that kind of feeling, any kind of dominance play. I want you to, maybe it's a couple that, I was about to be a little more graphic, like, there may be some prohibition about fluid exchange.
Mhm.
And maybe it's a new relationship, maybe they don't, and, he wants her to swallow his cum, and, and she's like, prohibition, I don't really know you, and disease. And so there's all that can happen. And then how do you figure out the obstacle of talking to each other,
Mhm.
having that like uncomfortable, challenging conversation? And you may find that by having the conversation that you get aroused.
Mhm.
Like exploring prohibition, exploring things you've never done before with your partner, things that maybe you've only read about in books, and deciding to do it, right?
And or
Or,
just deciding to talk about it. I think that that's
right,
a really key part, because I think that there's this pressure that once, like, I love to quote Mr. Rogers, whatever is mentionable is manageable, right? So
right.
let's just say that if it's mentionable in a relationship, it's manageable. Now, how you manage it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to do it. So let's say someone's like, oh, I really want to experience you pegging me, right? Or I'm curious about that. And it's like, well, the actual act might not be the thing, but talking about it. So I have this thing where I say, do it versus say it. So sometimes the do it isn't actually what you want. Like, so maybe the partner doesn't want to put on the peg, but maybe just, experiment in the beginning and just kind of hold a finger there and do some external play and be like, is this really what both of us want before we go, fully, or do we just want to talk about it? Maybe during, other more paved paths of eroticism, we can bring in these concepts, and just talking about them is super arousing, and then, half the time, if we have the ability to talk about something, the actual effort that it takes to go out and do some of the things that come to my mind is way too much. I'm too busy. I have too many children. But, I would say, like, I consider myself like a, a pretty, just making sure that all the children's are out of the house. Nina's coming right out. Hey, Bean, see ya. Sorry, I'm just gonna let her close that door. Yeah, I'm just on a webinar.
This is called real life, everybody.
Real life.
Sex
Yeah.
educators with real lives.
Real life.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, but the important piece is that it's like, I may have these lofty concepts about what I want to do out there in the world erotically, but like, I have all sorts of commitments and various things. So what I really need often is I need the ability to vocalize what these desires and conjurings are.
Mm-hmm.
And I also need to know that my partner knows that I don't necessarily want to do those things.
Yes.
That's a really important piece. So the sort of do it versus say it, because sometimes people think, oh, if I say that out loud, I'm going to be on the hook for that.
Right. And I may not actually really want to, I may not really want to do it.
Exactly.
So we had a question about how COVID-19 was affecting our sexuality. And I actually would love to know a little more about the question. Are we talking about, can you tell us a little more about your question? Is it about dating? Is it about having sex with people who are not known? That's my assumption. But I want to make sure that I'm really answering the question. Everyone is so on edge and less
Huh.
sexual.
Yeah, so hypervigilance is it sounds like is the
Oh,
question.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of things about this. I read a really great primer written for gay men who historically in their community have a lot of casual sex. And the article was about, will we ever get to have casual sex again? And they really raise a lot of really good points about dating and so I'm supposed to hang out with someone I've been flirting with this weekend. Do we need to leave masks on? Well, okay, so this is really like an
I mean, that could
STD.
be hot.
Yeah, so it's a bunch of things here. So first of all, people have to have real difficult conversations, which is the same as you would about your sexual habits and STDs, sexually transmitted diseases. So it may go something like, so let's pretend, Cosmo, okay?
Okay.
Hi,
Yeah.
hi, Cosmo.
Hi, Pamela. I really love your bangs.
Thank you. So we're talking about getting together and meeting for the first time. So I'm curious, have you been sheltering in one place, or like what have you been going to the protests? What have you been doing since COVID-19 hit?
Yeah, great question. So, we're on relative isolation. I've been at home. We do have a weekly grocery shop, and just recently, as things have loosened a little bit, have started having some backyard gatherings with up to 5 family members.
Oh, so you've
But
been with
no interaction, like physical kissing or interaction with anyone other than
and
you know.
and the people, the family members that you've been getting together with. What have they been doing? Have they also been sheltering, or have they been out and about?
They've been sheltering. We kind of within the um those particular relationships we're kind of like in a pod. So we talked about we talked about each of our practices, and we said, okay, this is what each of us are comfortable with, this is what we've been doing, and here's what this
Oh,
our pod is kind of doing.
so
Yeah.
so that feels like it's really safe,
Safe enough.
safe enough.
Yeah.
So
How about you?
I've I've been really kind of the same. I've really been mostly home. I did have some airplane travel, but that was like 2 months ago. And I've been feeling well, and I wear a mask when I go out. And it feels to me like I could go have a cup of coffee with you. And so that's kind of like having a little bit of like an STD conversation.
Elevator speech.
Right. So
Yeah.
I think it's important to be willing to ask your new friend to disclose what his social behavior has been and disclose what your social behavior has been, and then risk assess. So, we're going to be in 22 days. I'm going to be in LA with another one of our practitioners doing something called room service, which is private retreats. And no, we're not going to be wearing masks for the retreats, for these private retreats, but we've risk assessed with our clients who are coming in that they, what their behavior is and what feels safe for us. I think the biggest thing that I learned from this article about casual sex, um, that's really good. You might be clear, Cosmo was saying to everyone, whether touching is desired or not. It's mostly about face.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly about things like kissing is really not good. Like, so if you don't know this person and he's not a part or she's not a part of your pod, or this person has had maybe more high risk behavior than you've had, kissing is like a no-no, which is kind of, you could, kind of sad. I wonder about kissing through masks. Can we like kiss each other through masks? I wouldn't like rub noses unless it's like through a mask.
It's going to be a
Really,
whole new kink sweeping the nation.
right? Mask play,
Yeah,
right?
mask play.
Right. And so in this article about, casual sex for men, they were talking a lot about like sex being good, but smoochy stuff not being good.
Hmm.
So like no, like fucking yes, kissing no. Doggy style yes. Missionary no. So, and that was kind of the rules, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Uh-huh.
Did that answer your question? Do we answer it? Kinda. What do you want more? Should you be wearing masks? You know what, Sarah, it's really up to you. Like, what feels safe enough to you? I think once you assess each of your risk levels and how you've been living separately, then you get to decide. That's really the truth. You get to decide. Well, I mean, he's asking his family if it's okay to meet me. Yeah, people have really big feelings about this, don't they, Cosmo?
Yeah, for sure. And of course, family to family is different. There's some people that have, immunocompromised situations or different types of, basically higher risk categories than other folks. So yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal for people.
And yes, I'm trying to find the light again. I'm going to have to get a shade on there. What is true is that it is unusual. It is intense. And we're living in an unusual and intense time. And yeah, I hear so Linda's saying, I can't even figure out how to actually meet anyone, been single and celibate through all this unwillingly, but I don't even know how to meet anyone behind this crazy time. So I can't tell you the name, okay, but there's some sort of game that you can play online. I think you need an Xbox or something to play it, where people are going in and they're like building their own communities and they're dating. They're dating by this virtual community. And one of my kids who's single actually has been doing this and then met the girl in the park.
No.
Yes, it's a true story. So there's ways to play. There's also ways to keep your eroticism alive. I'm going to post this right. You know what? I'm worried that I'm not going to post it I'm in the Q&A. I want to be in the chat. So I'm going to post this here. I don't want it just to Cosmo. I want it to all panelists and attendees. So we're having an event. We're having an event tomorrow night called Passport to Pleasure. And what we're going to be doing at that event is demonstrating how you can have somatic sex education, somatic experiences, erotic experiences literally through the glass, through the lens. And so how can you date even? We're not going to actually be doing that, but I can tell you. Oh, you signed up. Yay, Linda. Love that. So, we're going to be helping you all feel really sexy through the glass. And that's helpful during this time because you may not feel like dating. You may want other outlets for your erotic energy. And if you have a date with somebody and you don't feel comfortable yet meeting in person, well, why don't you have a dinner date through Zoom? So, you can bring flowers and set the table, and you bring dinner and he brings dinner, and have a date through Zoom and get to know each other a little bit that way. Or walk in the park. That's right. You can social distance. You can wear masks if you want to. Now he has to order your dinner. Great. So that's like amping it up. Okay, he's got to order your dinner. He's got to send that Chinese food over for you. And so, I've taken walks with friends, in the woods. I love it. That's great. Chipotle is fine. Um, but you can really get creative with this. And I think what this is making us all do, it's actually forcing us to be creative. It's actually giving us a huge erotic equation. We have a huge erotic, we have prohibition,
Yeah,
right?
mega pro.
Mega prohibition,
Yeah.
right? No kissing if you don't know them, right? Can you wear your mask? Do you have to ask your family? Whoa, Romeo and Juliet's going on here, right? Got to get the family's permission. There's the obstacle. There's COVID-19. The sun is the sun really bothering?
No, it's good.
No, it's just me who feels like it's really, really bright. And then you have that yearning. And so how do you play with it? How do you make it exciting? How can you be creative around this? Taking walks, ordering in dinner. How can you wear sexy masks? Have you gone online? I have a leopard mask.
I mean, I swear 3 years from now, we're going to be, at a Back to the Body retreat, and it's going to be a thing. Can you wear the mask? Can you pretend like it's COVID?
Right. No, it will be. It will become like a fetish, So, okay, I'm single and I've been dating. Ideas depending on your area, market. Hiking is awesome. Go for a run. Yes, I know you've gone paddle boarding, Christy. I saw your picture today and I was very jealous, very jealous. But yes, there's lots of things that you can do. When are we offering this again? Do you already have a commitment tomorrow night? I don't know. I don't know when we're going to be offering it again. It's kind of a big deal. We're getting the entire team together. That's 11 sex educators are coming together, and we're doing demonstrations, and it's a big deal.
Yeah, and we're going to see if it goes,
if it goes really well, maybe we'll do it again.
Really well, yeah, we'll do it again if it goes really well.
And just so right now, this is what it is, and it's a 3-hour event with potty breaks. And good, right? So it's really cool. Does anyone else have any questions for us?
Someone be risky and be like, I'm thinking about this, and this is prohibitive, and how do I work that into the erotic equation? I'm just throwing that out there. The riskier that you can be, the funner this is going to be for everyone.
Anyone?
Everyone's pondering.
Right. Everyone's just worried about how they're gonna freaking meet somebody. I'm thinking about how many people are tuned in right now? What do you mean here in this moment? About 24. About 24 people. Video sex. I like the idea, but I don't like initiating. Well, that's interesting, right? You don't like initiating.
So you could ask questions. So that's a really great one. So instead of saying, "Hey, are you open to video sexing with me?" You could say something like, "I'm really curious about some desires you might have. Would you be willing to share some of your desires with me?" And then, that might prompt them to come out with something that then you can meet them there. So, but it would put it into their court. So if you're feeling a bit shy, but I don't like a huge laugh. Oh, you're good. That's good.
Yes, yeah. Yes. He's very good. He's always good. Like through the glass, in person, he's always good.
Yeah. So that would be my way to punt it back over to someone. And I would say that, let's say I have some erotic exchanges online, all fully consensual in my relationship. And let's say I'm I'm always a little tentative to kind of initiate that too, because you don't know who you're talking to, and you don't know, I might ask questions, and always inquiry is my way to get to know somebody and get to figure out what their desires are. And usually somebody would throw out a little crumb to a bigger muffin that they're holding. So you can always just sort of assume that if someone throws a crumb out, like, oh, well, maybe we could exchange a photo. Well, maybe you start with that. And a photo might be not a nude photo, but just like a picture of you right in that moment that's like just for them. That could be really hot. And that type of exchange could grow to masturbating together on the screen. But you don't want to jump right into, let's video sex.
Can you do that again for us?
So hopefully that helps. But just like pacing, lack of urgency, and inquiry.
Okay, I'm comfortable zooming. Not turned on much of the time.
Nice. Let's see. Okay, so did you want to read that one out loud? That's a pretty good one to address.
Sure. Not turned on much of the time, not sure how to get sexually connected, been married for 12 years, love my wife, only felt sexual with one person in my life ever. He was not a good relation choice, though. I can't get myself off. So I'm hearing different genders. So I don't know if that's a misspell or not, but I'm hearing that you're with a woman, but you were sexually turned on that one time you were with a man, if I'm getting that right. And so what I'm hearing is that maybe there's some exploration or maybe some prohibition or some shame around your desires to be with men. And so you may love being with your wife and love your wife. Maybe there are children, a partnership, but you may have strong erotic needs that need to be met with a man. And you might want to look at man-on-man pornography and see how your body reacts to that. Like, do you feel an urgency to self-pleasure if you're looking at men with men porn? And experiment and be curious about yourself rather than being shaming around yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really sweet. And so what came up for me is like, as this term barrier to entry. So like assessing like what Pamela was talking about, like what's the, we're all walking around, we've all lived these lives. So much of the work we do as somatic educators is and somatic sex educators specifically, as sexological body workers, we work with people's bodies. When we up level to somatic sex education, we kind of add this other component that's very trauma informed. So with that component, what we might see is that every one of us is walking around with some type of trauma suit, and that's a barrier to entry into our erotic being, right? And so if I can't even get myself off, I would say, okay, well, maybe, there are some layers of work to do prior to your erotic being able to be accessed. So we help people access pleasure in their bodies through touch, movement, breath, and sound. And, some exercises that bring awareness to our trauma so that we can peel that layer off and then start accessing that pleasure.
Sean, what I'm hearing as well is that you might want to do some coaching with a man who is a sexological body worker, and that might be supportive to you. So someone like Cosmo. We have 3 other men in our team that work with men. Cosmo works with men. Ron Stewart works with men, and Court Box works with men. And if you want to send me an email after this, Pamela@backtothebody.org, I'm happy to send you contact information. I think it would be very helpful for you to do some coaching with a man and explore that. And you know what? You can reflect forever and be unhappy forever. If you want to have a strong, beautiful, vibrant life, like if you want to like, you've got to actually lift up your leg and kick it, not reflect the relationship. I'm not saying that, Sean. I'm just saying
No. What he's saying is that instead of reflection, we got to put the word relationship. So he says, feeling the need for open relationship. It's been discussed, but I still have resistance to following through. So that's a big piece, and probably a step towards that would be working with some type of somatic practitioner. So there's less risk to your relationship rather than going to find a lover. And there's also less commitment. When you're paying a professional to engage with you for a certain amount of time for an agreed upon amount of money with a certain set of parameters and code of ethics. Whereas when you enter into the world of, open relating, it actually takes a tremendous amount of energy. And I think that people that conceive of open relationships versus the ones that are in them may not realize the amount of energy output that it takes to engage with those open relationships.
Yeah. It's open relationships are often a very tantalizing idea. And you spend a lot of time talking and negotiating emotions than having sex. Open relationships should come with a warning button that says you better be good at talking, you better be good at negotiating, you better be good at boundaries and consent. It's a lift.
And otherwise, some form of sex workers are often a more reasonable solution. And other than the stigma that's often wrapped around sex work, and I think as a society and as a culture, we start to evolve into sex work being just like this celebrated part of our community that, when utilized properly, can be an absolute game changer in relationship. Because relationship has so many other things than eroticism. And sometimes that piece of the equation, getting back to this erotic equation, is missing from relationship, but that doesn't mean that all the other parts of the stability, the comfort, blended finances, blended families, whatever you want to do, aren't worth keeping. But we often break all those things just because we're not met in our erotic equation, which actually, it's sad.
And what was true for me was I've been married for 38 years, which is a long time, really long time. I don't know if you folks are familiar with my book. This is my book, Shameless, How I Ditched the Diet, Got Naked, Found True Pleasure, and somehow got home in time to cook dinner. This is my story of me a few years ago, like 15, and how I utilized working with sexological body workers to fulfill some of my erotic equation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where I needed to jumpstart my life and jumpstart my eroticism, and so I recommend reading Shameless. It's really entertaining and funny, and you can sort of understand the path. And so I credit the longevity of my marriage to my ability to work with somatic sex educators and to climb on a table and have experiences in a safe, thank you, Quinn, in a safe and boundaried way. In the same way, right now with COVID-19, it's really hard, around dating, and you want to continue to grow yourself erotically. You want to continue to expand. How do you do that? And that's why we created this everyday program, which is something that at Back to the Body we're offering. And I'm just going to say it one more time for people who've just joined us. Tomorrow night, and I'll put up the link one last time. Tomorrow night we are doing an event, a 3-hour event, and that's going to allow people to have a taste of how you can move erotic energy in all various ways in a virtual form. And it may even give you ideas for dating. Because if you get to see some of the ways that you can feel, working with professionals in a safe way, virtually even, you can take that, into your life. And I'm noticing the time, Cosmo. Well, there's one more question, and then we're gonna close for the night. My husband would like us to have a three-way. Missed that. My husband would like us to have a three-way, but I've never had sex with anyone besides my husband. He's had many, many partners before we met and is sexually dissatisfied, but I'm not sure how to meet in the middle. We do fantasy talk, but it doesn't seem to be enough. Any suggestions of what I could do to help him be more satisfied in our sex life? Cosmo, you want to take that?
Yeah, for sure. So first off, it would be really great to talk through what, like you might say, okay, so you might say, okay, baby, sure, you want to explore this thing. I'm happy to explore it, but again, it's about pacing and a lack of urgency, right? Because your body might not, we're talking about feeling good in our bodies. So he wants to feel good in his body, and you might be willing to explore what a threesome might look like. So you might say, yes, let's talk about it. And my body's going to be there and I need an on-ramp. So you might start and say, okay, let's first figure out what the attributes of this human we're going to bring into the mix are. You have to talk about what your responsibility is to them and their emotional process. So you have to figure out like the type of person that you would bring in, what their attachments are going to be to either of you. And then if you were to engage sexually, what you would be comfortable with. Yeah, you're welcome, Sean. Thank you. And so, with a threesome, like you might say, well, I've never had anyone else inside me, and I don't know that I want, anyone else inside me. But I wouldn't be opposed to having someone touch me here and here and here. And you're like, oh, well, maybe, somebody might have kissing might be more intimate than penetrative sex. So you could kind of create like a bit of a template for what feels comfortable and say the first time it might be really tame and we're going to have to feel into this. And so I would just, that's what I would offer, is that you allow your willingness to do it not surpass your body's safety. So what we talk about is do things that maybe aren't uncomfortable to push your boundaries, but not unsafe. Because what that can do is put you in a place.
And I'm also going to suggest the possibility of doing a couples retreat. So you could do a couples retreat. It's something that we do at Back to the Body. If you're interested in that, you can certainly email me, Pamela@backtothebody.org. That's a safe way of bringing in different energy to a couple without breaking boundaries, feeling what it's like to be in a space with other people, being erotic, again, within boundaries. And so considering a private couples retreat might be something that would be a whole lot less scary for you and meet everyone's needs. Is the event tomorrow centered on dating? No, it's not centered at all on dating virtually and COVID. Nope. No, it is centered on learning to feel and expand yourself erotically. That's what it's centered on. So it's centered on desire, and we're going to be using live demonstrations of how to work with your body, different skills.
Caitlin and I are going to be doing the language of touch, so how to interact with your partner and get certain types of touch, create boundaries, find your yeses and your nos. And
Court and I are doing fantasy play demos and how to cultivate fantasy. Barry and Pamela Joy are doing working with trauma. We're having Marla come on, Marla Stewart, who's going to be talking, teaching us about the communication of dirty talk, how to text, how to play, how to communicate with sexy language. We're going to be doing breath work and singing work and movement and dance. So there's going to be a lot going on, and so it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to get you up. It's not going to be just sitting talking faces at you. We're not going to be breaking out into small groups. We had wanted that, but that's not what's happening. But you will feel seen, I promise. So like, how do you feel right now? It's going to be a similar kind of a feeling, but with 11 practitioners coming in and out, taking the spotlight. Well, great. If you feel great now, you'll feel great then, only more better. It's going to be way more better than this.
Okay, and let me just see, we got a question here. It says, I've been alone for so long now, and then COVID hit. All that you're talking about is so far beyond where I'm at right now. How do I even just get out there again and outside of my own head? Yeah. So yeah, I do realize some of the, some of the options that we're presenting might be like, beyond the scope of what you can imagine right now. And so just like, use the same principles and just dial it way, way, way back. Right. So instead of, we could be more specific. Yeah. So, how you're going to get out there again.
Yeah, and tomorrow night's not going to be scary. It might be a really great first step for y'all. Yeah. To just do a little exploration, the safety of your home. It's not going to be great big giant steps, and you'll be able to do what you need to do from your home. You'll be nice and safe, and it will kind of open your eyes a little bit. Maybe feel a little exciting, maybe even a little scary. I'm not scared. I just want to know I'll be included. Yes, Linda, you'll be included.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
You're being included right now. So not a problem. In fact, one of our, Ron, who's one of our partners in crime, is going to be monitoring all the time, all the questions and all the answers, and supporting us with that. Anyway, Cosmo and I are going to have to close because we're going actually, thank you. We're going to go meet with a whole group of women who are in our everyday group. And that's starting in like 10 minutes. So it's been really wonderful. Thanks for joining us. If you just found this through Facebook or social media, go to backtothebody.org, get on the mailing list, and then you'll get notifications of events that we do all the time because we like doing these events a lot. So good night, everybody. Cosmo, thank you so much.
Thanks, Pamela. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, and we'll see you tomorrow, I hope. And I am stopping the recording.